You've probably been in a meeting where someone drops the acronym OFAC, and yeah, maybe your eyes glazed over a little bit. Don't worry, you are not alone. But it's a name that carries some serious weight in the business world. So today we're going to pull back the curtain and demystify exactly what OFAC is and why it matters so much. So, why the big deal about OFAC? Well, let's just start with a number: $6.1 billion. That is the jaw-dropping amount of money OFAC dished out in penalties in just one single year. A number like that gets your attention, right? It's a crystal clear sign that when compliance goes wrong, the consequences are absolutely massive. And that huge number leads us right to the big question, doesn't it? What in the world is OFAC? And more importantly, how do you make sure your organization stays way off its radar? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into. Okay, so let's get down to basics. OFAC stands for the Office of Foreign Assets Control. It's a powerful little agency inside the U.S. Department of the Treasury. The easiest way to think of them? They're the enforcers. They carry out U.S. foreign policy and national security goals using economic and trade sanctions to go after some really bad actors. Now, for years, businesses were kind of navigating these tricky rules in the dark. But that all changed back in 2019. That's when OFAC finally published its official framework, basically a roadmap, for what it considers a solid sanctions compliance program, or an SCP. And this quote right here, it gets to the absolute heart of it. This isn't just a friendly tip from the government. It's official guidance. And notice that key phrase, risk-based approach. That's huge. OFAC doesn't want you to just tick a bunch of boxes. They want you to think, to really dig in and understand your company's unique risks. So, what does this risk-based approach actually look like when you're building it? Well, OFAC breaks the whole thing down into 5 essential pillars. This right here is the core of their entire framework. Okay, here they are, the big 5. Management commitment, risk assessment, internal controls, testing and auditing, and finally, training. Just seeing them laid out like this gives you a great map of what an effective program is all about. So let's dive into that first one. Pillar number 1 is management commitment. And let me be clear, this is a total non-negotiable. OFAC says a successful program has to start at the very top, from the C-suite. We're not talking about just sending out a memo. We're talking about real resources, real money, and giving your compliance team the authority to actually do their job, and fostering a true culture of compliance from the top down. Next up, Pillar 2, risk assessment. This is where that whole risk-based idea really comes to life. This is not a one-and-done task. It's an ongoing process. You have to constantly be looking at your business, who your customers are, where your products go, the countries you operate in, to find your weak spots. Everything you find here is going to shape the rest of your program. Now with Pillar 3, internal controls, this is where the rubber meets the road. You take what you learned from your risk assessment and you turn it into action. These are the day-to-day tools of the trade. Things like written policies, screening software, good record keeping, and of course, a super clear process for what to do when a red flag pops up. Okay, so you've built all these controls, but how do you know if they're actually working? That's Pillar 4, testing and auditing. You gotta kick the tires. You need to regularly and objectively check your program for any weaknesses or holes. The whole point is to find the problems before OFAC does. And the final piece of the puzzle, pillar number 5, is training. It's so important because, your fancy systems are only as good as the people running them. Training can't be a one-time thing. It has to be ongoing, it needs to be specific to people's jobs, and it absolutely has to keep up with the constantly changing world of global sanctions. All right, so we've walked through the 5 pillars, but how do they really all work together in practice? Well, it all comes back to that main idea we keep talking about, the power of a risk-based approach. This comparison really lays it out perfectly. On one hand, you've got that generic checklist compliance. It's static, it's inefficient, and frankly, it's often ineffective. But on the other hand, you have a tailored risk-based program. It's dynamic, it's smart, it's customized to your business, and it puts your resources right where your biggest threats are. It's about working smarter, for sure. Let's make this super practical. Think about a small US retailer that only sells to customers here in the States. Their sanctions risk? Pretty low. So their program can be pretty basic. Now, compare that to a massive global bank. Their risk is through the roof. They need a huge, dedicated compliance team and the most advanced technology out there. The program has to fit the risk. It's that simple. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
If you're going to walk away remembering just one single thing from all of this, what should it be?
It's this, right here. A strong compliance program is proactive, not reactive. The entire goal is to stop violations from ever happening in the first place, instead of just trying to clean up a huge, expensive mess after the fact.
Which brings us right to the final and most critical question you should be asking back at the office. Take a hard look at your business, your operations, everything, and ask, does our compliance program reflect our actual risk? Because getting that answer right, well, that's the core of the OFAC framework. That's the whole ballgame. Thanks for tuning in.